And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. And welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your sensei, Bob. And I'm here at a school, public school. They're about to have a Christmas dinner for their community, which will be beautiful and lovely. And um, and I'm reading Christmas Carol. And this is a book that I got from the old crone. I was in her library, and it was 1970. And when I picked it up, I read the cover pager, and it said Dover Thrifty Edition of Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, printed in 1991. This was 1970 when I picked it off the shelf. So 12 years in the future, this book was going to be printed, reprinted, and it was sold for $1. And then back in '93, I was in a coffee shop, and I kept finding this and losing it, over the years, right? And I was in Asheville, and I opened up a box, and there it was, right on top. So I started reading it again. It was getting close to Christmas, and I was in a coffee shop, and this woman just kind of was shocked, and she came over to me and took this book out of my hands. Where'd you get this book? You take it, And I said, what are you talking about? And she goes, and right on there it says Carrie. This is my book. See, my name's right there. I've been annotating it. And she takes a look at the book. She goes, I bought this book just a month ago, and it's brand new, and it looks like it's been read for 20 years. And then she turns, she goes, she looks at the front where she annotated everything, right? And she goes past page 18, right? She's got everything annotated, all this great stuff, The air was filled with the phantoms wandering hither and thither in the restless haste and moaning as they went. Every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost from feud. They might be guilty. Governments were linked together, none were free. Many had been personally known to Scrooge in their lives. He had been quite familiar with one old ghost in a white waistcoat with a monstrous. So, hey, buddy. So, what's Christmas? Thank you, darling. Oh, that's you read my mind again. Look what this Christmas elf brought me. He brought me this. So, Christmas elf, come here for a second. No, he's not going to say anything. But thank you, Christmas elf. Deviled eggs, can't beat it. So my diabetes, I went to the unmentionable one's family's home and spent Thanksgiving with them, which was very nice. Jesus created. And they were Italian Irish family. The Italian side cooked so much food and cookies and baked goods that were like from my childhood, strudel and Nupko. And all these, and I said, shouldn't eat this. And I had one little ball of Nupko, and that was it. So next 3 days, I said, well, this will be the last one. And then I was on the bop for about 4 days, not sleeping into most everything, and didn't have it together. Got back, got the place ready for winter, and noticed I had and this was still November, had a diabetic sore on my foot. So I went to my doctor, and he couldn't see me, so I saw this other doctor, and they just looked at it and said, well, make an appointment to see him. And so I did, and that was 2 weeks ago. And they were supposed to make an appointment for, a podiatrist. and urgent care. But no, not a phone call, not right. So this is healthcare in America. So I'm reaching out to you, cadre, and everyone. I want you to think about healing Al Bob, right? Because I'm at this like, because my blood sugar usually is around 90, right? And when I looked at it, when I realized I had to saw it was about two something. And so I took my cinnamon and my coumarin and turmeric and other things I take, and it kind of knocked it down to 150. But it's been bouncing between 120 and 150, which is not going to kill me, but it's not good because my homeostasis is between 90 and 120, right? So I am like up 20 points, and I still that little diabetic sore, which if it gets carried away, they have to chop your leg off. You don't want to see your sensei by hobbling around. And pretty much, if my body started to go that way, I'd probably die relatively quickly. So you want to see me around? Put some on that PayPal, but primarily send me some prayers, right? And send me some, come to, if you send something PayPal, they ask you who, and you answer the dude awake 42 at Gmail, to the dude awake 42 at Gmail, all over place, almost. The dude awake 42 at Gmail, and get a hold of me. Because I'd love to hear from you. I have about 100 of you who, communicate, very, very, lots, right? Which I'm big for. So here's the daily verse, Revelations 3:20. I what is the Holy Spirit? I what is? Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. Let us listen for his knock. Let us open the door of our hearts, that he, living the example of the true compassion, may enter. So I was basically at church, and everyone kind of looks at me as the old homeless scholar, right? I've been going there long enough and I've spoken enough to everyone that they go, wow, this guy knows something. He understands the Bible more than our pastor, more than our teachers, more than, he's like a rabbi. So some people call me rabbi, right? So that's why they call me rabbi. But I'm, here, I'm knocking on your door, right? And we are at a point in time, same as it ever was. There have been wars and rumors of wars and famines and pestilence. There isn't a day that there isn't that on this earth, which could be fixed. This war in Ukraine, we have that. Everyone has spent $1 trillion in like 9 months. What would happen if we spent $1 trillion in 9 months on poverty and healthcare for everyone? How can America, the richest country in the world, have, like me, I have to really understand that the system and work it. Whereas an average person don't, and they just kind of ignore it and die. And that's the motif. So back to Charles Dickens. Before he shut the door, and he did look cautiously behind it first, as he half expected to be terrified the sight of Marley's pigtails sticking out into the hall. But there was nothing on the back of the door except the screws and nuts that held the knocker. And so he said, "Pooh, pooh," and closed it behind, and bang. The sound resonated through the house like thunder. Every room above and every cask in the wine merchant's cellar below appeared to have separated peal of echoes of its own. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He fastened the door and walked across the hall and up the stairs slowly to the trimming his candle as he went. You may talk vaguely about driving a coach 6 up good old flight of stairs or through a bad young act of parliament, but I mean to say you might have got a horse up the staircase and taken it broadwise with a splinter bar towards the wall. So this is where Scrooge is coming home. Ooh, cleaning up, eh?
We got a leak.
It can always be worse.
Yes, for sure.
Yep. Has the crowd started to come in? No. Before he shut the door, and he did look cautiously behind it, right? So did you ever read Dickens' Scrooge? Or see the movie? Yeah. I read this all during Advent week, month, you know? No paper towels. Here you go.
I'll get something.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself double locked himself in, which was not his custom. Thus, secured against this surprise, he took off his cravat and put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap and sat down before the fire to take his gruel. It was a very low fire indeed, nothing of such a bitter night. He was obliged to sit close to it and brood over it before he could extract the last sensations of warmth of such a handful of fuel. The fireplace was an old one, built by some Dutch merchants long ago and paved all around with quaint Dutch tiles designed to illustrate the scriptures there. Cain and Abel, Pharaoh's daughter, and queens of Sheba, angelic messengers descending through the air on clouds like feather beds, Abraham's blazer, apostles putting off to sea in butter boats, hundreds of figures to attract his thoughts. And yet, at face of Marley, 7 years dead, came like an ancient prophet's rod and swallowed up the whole. If each smooth tile had been a blank at first, power to shape some picture on its surface from the disjointed fragments of his thoughts, there would have been a copy of old Marley's head on every one. "Humbug!" said Scrooge, and walked across the room. After several turns, he sat down again, and he threw his head back in the chair and glanced and happened to rest upon a bell. A dissuaded bell that hung in the room and communicated for some purpose now forgotten. with a chamber in the heighth story of the building. It was with great astonishment and with strange, inexplicable dread that as he looked, he saw this bell begin to ring. And it swung so softly in the outset that it scarcely made a sound. But soon it rang out loud, and so did every bell in the house. This might have lasted half a minute, or a minute, but it seemed an hour. The bells ceased as they had begun, together. They were succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. Scrooge then remembered to have heard that ghost haunted houses were described as dragging chains. The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floor below, and coming up the stairs and coming straight towards his door. It's humbug still, said Scrooge. I won't believe it. Sounds like a lot of people I know who don't want to believe things. The same face, the very same Marley in his pigtails, usually waistcoat, tight and boots, and tassels on the leather, bristling like his pigtails, and his coat skirt, and the hair upon his head. The chain he drew was clasped about his middle. Uh-oh, good to see ya. Didn't get ya. Scrooge had often heard it said that Marley had no bowels, but he had never believed it until now. Scrooge observed it closely. So back to Marley's ghost, right? So he's a ghost, not a spirit, right? Like his pigtails and the chains he drew were clasped about his middle. It was long and would about him like a tail, and it was made of, Scrooge observed it closely, cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purse wrought in steel. His body was transparent so that Scrooge could observe him, and lacking through his waistcoat, could see that two buttons of his coat behind. Scrooge had often heard that Marley had no balls or bowels, but he had never believed it until now. No, nor did he believe it even now, though he looked at the phantom through and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its death cold eyes and marked the very texture of the folded kerchief bound about his head and chin, which wrapped he had not observed before. He was still incredulous and fought against his senses. How now, said Scrooge, caustic and cold as ever. What do you want with me? Much, Marley's voice, no doubt about it. Much, Marley's voice, no doubt about it. Ask me who I was. Who are you then? Said Scrooge, raising his voice. You're particular for a shade. He was going to say to shade, but substitute to this a more appropriate. In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley. Can you sit down? Asked Scrooge, looking doubtfully at him. I can, answered Marley. Do it then. Scrooge asked the question because he did not know whether a ghost so transparent find himself in condition to take a chair. And he felt that the event of it being impossible, it might involve necessary, and embracing expanding. Right? I don't know, said Scrooge. Why do you doubt your senses? Dickens has a sense of humor. You're nothing more than a greasy meal, right? Because, said Scrooge, a little thing affects them. A slight uh, disorder, a stomach makes them cheat. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of a grave about you. What a, whatever you are. So you got to tell yourself, all those things about, what you should be doing or think you're doing or what are you doing. I wear the chair I forged in life, replied the ghost. I made it link by link, yard by yard. I gridded it on my own free will, and on my own free will I wore it. Is it a pattern strange to you? Scrooge trembled more and more. Or would you know, pursued the ghost, the weight, the length of the strong coil you bear yourself was full, as heavy, and as long as this. 7 Christmases Eves ago, you have labored on it since. It is a ponderous chain. Right? So, I've had money, and I haven't had money. Right? It's never made a difference because I live in love's co-creation. I serve love's co-creation. My time here on this planet is coming to an end. I mean, not like tomorrow, but I'm in my 70s, so I'm not going to live another 70 years. That's for sure. Maybe 5, 10, maybe even 20, especially if I find a sweetie. Right? You know, I was told I have, 3 wives to have, and now I've had, at least 10 women in my life that I could have married, and 5 of those I actually, you know, lived with as if we were married. I mean, I considered myself married to that person, right? But I never, got the paperwork. So is the crowd coming in? No, soon though. So go read the Christmas Carol a few times. Go watch Bill Murray's Christmas Carol. That's really, of all the movie Christmas carols I've seen, that is the best because it's modernist times, as of the 80s, right? But it really, his last soliloquy, let's see what Scrooge says. Let's see. It's Christmas Day, said Scrooge to himself. I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. They can do anything. I'm going to start to cry. Of course I can do anything. Of course I can. He looks out the window. Hello, my fine fellow. Hello, returned the boy. Do you know that poulterer's in the next street, the one at the corner? Scrooge inquired. I should hope I did, I replied the lad. An intelligent boy, said Scrooge. A remarkable boy. Do you know whether they should have sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? No, the little prize turkey is a big one. What? Oh, One is as big as me, returned the boy. What a delightful boy, Scrooge. It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my buck. It's hanging there now, replied the boy. It is, said Scrooge. Go and buy it. Walker, exclaimed the boy, meaning, screw you. No, 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 said Scrooge. I am in earnest. Go and buy it and tell him to bring it here, and I may give them directions where to take it. Come back with the man, and I will give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes. I will give you half a crown. It's like $50. The boy was off like a shot and must have had a steady hand at the trigger who could have got the shot off half that fast. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit, whispered Scrooge, rubbing his hands and splitting with a laugh. He shan't know who sent it. Twice the size of Tiny Tim. Joe Miller never made such a joke as sending it to Bob will be. Let's see. Giving is a much so ironic tones. Hello, tones. So giving, that is why I do this YouTube, to give to you. Right? I see every day in every way Christmas Day, 24/7, 365. Right? Christmas shouldn't be just one day or a holiday. It should be year round. If we had Christmas's unconditional love in our heart and Christmas's unconditional forgiveness in our mind, there'd be no war, there'd be no famine. I wouldn't be sleeping in a metal box out in the middle of the woods with no heat. Someone would come and get me and have the joy of me being in their house. Right? And when I spent Thanksgiving in the Unmentionable One's family's home, basically, there was no real joy in anyone's heart. There was momentarily here, there. The oldest daughter had a good sense of humor. She tried to keep it light and fun. Her husband was a jolly guy. Their daughter was sweet and fun. But the Unmentionable's father was, who are all these people in my house? Get them out of here. I mean, he said that the whole time I was there. Right? Until, the day after Thanksgiving, he, just said, and this is after I, woke up. He was downstairs. We talked. We had a nice conversation, and he's, like a switch. Get the fuck out. I mean, we're having a nice conversation. Get the fuck out. Get out of my house. Get out. And I said, no problem. I had already planned to be going. And that's when the older daughter came up and said, hey, you can't go to New York. I said, why? She goes, well, that place you're staying, I went there, to my mother and her brother's house, and it was her mother's house, and they've been fighting it over the last 7 years, and so neither of them have been taking care of it, and so there's no electricity, no heat. It's full of rats and cockroaches. I went to stay. I had a meeting in New York, and I was going to stay there, and she said, "Don't go. It won't be good for you." And she was right. And I basically talked to.
Why do you have a leg? Is that a cow leg? Why do you have a cow? You have a cow leg. Leg.
Good. Christmas.
Woo.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Yep.
Girl.
How you
Well,
doing?
Always good. Always good.
I brought part of my wife. I left her open.
We got to bring the crowd, you know.
Well, they're coming. They'll be here.
Woo. Hey, Carmen.
Yes, it's looking for winter.
Yes.
That's why we're like,
Hey, Carmen.
well, the crowd is starting to come in, so I'm going to say, I'll catch you guys later. And so these are nice people, right? But I don't quite fit their worldview. But I've known them a long time, so I've talked to them all individually, and like I said, they call me Rabbi. That way, hey, good to see you.
Thank you.
Happy everything.
That's right.
Happy everything. Yep. Let's see what you guys are saying. Oh, apple cider vinegar. Yes, yes. Cabbage hearts. Yes, yes. Okay, whatever. What else? Broccoli. Okay. Problem is, no money to buy any of that. I got plenty of joy and cheer to share. Good. Share it every day in every way. When you go out today, whatever errands you're on, if you go to church, wherever you are, spread that joy. Oh, well, Mr. Magic, my phone doesn't always pick up. So that's the thing. So you have, hello, welcome. Happy everything and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah.
I got hearing aids. I don't always catch what people say.
Well, I also can't hear, so I can relate. Just go on through that door, and there's the crowd. So I'm going to join the crowd, and thanks for everyone. And get a hold of me at the dudewake42@gmail, dudewake42@gmail, dudewake42. And if you can, hey, welcome. Welcome. Merry Christmas. The whole family's here. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. And what else can I say? That's about it. Okay. So I'll get a hold of you again today, a little later. Okay. But I'm going to go mingle with the crowd.